Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his music, his voice, his time, for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, and sci-fi dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thanks to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind our logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror or Halloween genre, but does incredible commission pieces of any type. So tonight is an evening of high strangeness. Tobias Wayland returns, and we are going to be talking about connections. Everything is connected. How many times have we, covered that on the show? Many, many times. So he will be delving into some strange tales of the impossible. Incredible book that he has. We're going to show it, and filled with information that comes from the Singular Fortean Society's case files. And of course, there's a whole lot of other topics that we'll cover in there. But I think we're going to have a really interesting evening, to say the least. So see everybody chiming in. Hi, hello, Heidi. Hello. Just want to make sure I get everybody. Hello, Wayne, Mish. Okay, we're starting to come in. Janie, hello. Waiting for the gang to come in. So, okay, excellent. Mark, hi. Yup, all the way. God's sakes, what is it, 2 a.m. for you? Did you guys have your time change yet? That's crazy. But thank you. Always very humbled to see you here, Mark. Thank you. So without further ado, we welcome our special guest, Tobias Wayland. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh, are you kidding? Had a great time the last time. It was just Mothman. Everybody loves Mothman. And you just seem to have all the interesting information, the go-to guy. So everybody.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Carol Ann Iadarola, because you've been on Ethereal Encounters. Says, no. You need to talk to Tobias for this. I'm like, all right. So, of course, after perusing your website, you just have a lot of goodies on there. So you write a lot of articles. Like you've always got something, in the mix.
Yeah, I have written traditionally quite a few articles. I'll tell you, it's slowed down recently because I've been too busy writing books. So I'm always writing something. Yeah. But it's one of those trade-offs where I've got these book deals now, and I'm working on those, and so I have less time for articles, but I'm still active on social media, and the website does get updated. So I try to involve myself with as much weirdness as I have time for.
Never too much weirdness. Never too much. So this is the gem that we're talking about this evening. I mean, partially because we've got. There's so much that you can talk about and get pulled in so many different directions. But strange tales of the impossible. So, guys, the write-up and the link to purchase, of course, is in the show description, so you can find it there. So where do we want to start with this? I mean, you cover everything: UFOs, cryptids, paranormal.
Well, that was the impetus behind writing this particular book, was it sort of being my first real foray as in author into really fully into this world of high strangeness. I mean, this was the second book that I wrote, and it followed up the Lake Michigan Mothman, and certainly there is high strangeness in the Lake Michigan Mothman, because many of those witnesses had other paranormal experiences, whether it be a UFO sighting or something similar.
Mhm.
But it still, like, that book was still very tightly focused on that specific investigation. And so in my follow-up to that work, I wanted to talk about all of the other cases that I was also getting, because it's never just been winged humanoids. I've always received all manner of sightings, as you said, from UFOs to ghosts and hauntings to all manner of cryptids and monsters and even stranger things. There are reports in this particular work that don't seemingly involve any sort of creature or anything like that. I'm reminded of a woman who wrote to me about a time slip that her family experienced. Yeah, this was in the Okefenokee swamp of all places. They were on vacation years ago, and they had rented a small boat, and they were gonna paddle out to one of these islands out there. They were gonna have a picnic lunch, and then they were gonna, come back to the boat rental. And they paddled out, and everything was seemingly normal. They had a nice picnic lunch, and there were other people around. And then they went to go back, right? Like, they're all done, ready to leave. And all of a sudden, the terrain had completely changed, and they couldn't find their way back. There were land masses where there weren't supposed to be land masses.
Wow.
Right. And it wasn't just them, because as they were headed back, they said there was a small boat next to them, and that had a couple of guys in it who were also tourists, and they were also very confused, and they couldn't figure out why suddenly they weren't able to find their way back. And so they ended up going back to this island where they had lunch, and then waited, turned around, tried again, and everything was just fine. Everything was totally normal, and they made it back no problem. So
wow, that's
yeah.
I've heard stories like that, even from people that we know. But as children, where you get into this running around, they chase each other around. So they'd be running around the house, and in two different instances for two different people we know, as children, they said it had to have been a time slip, because they were looking around, or they were walking through the house, their family wasn't there, there was nobody there, the kids weren't there, things seemed different. And he could hear the family calling him, but he couldn't see them. And there was like 2 hours of missing time. He decided, kid brain, ran around the other way, and he was back. And this happened twice.
That is so bizarre. Did they have any other strange phenomena happening in that house?
Never heard anything. It's weird because they're two different people who don't even know each other, and one story came to Wayne, one story came to me. Two entirely different walks of life, age groups, but it happened as kids, and in both
Wow.
both
That's so
scenarios. And
fascinating.
they never said if there was anything that had happened after that, but it was just like it was crazy. I mean, you think you hear stories, and you're lucky if you hear one in your life,
Right.
especially with somebody but to hear two from somebody and they both did the same thing. It was actually the same idea. They chase each
Right.
other around, and they're hearing all the stuff going, and ran the other way. And it just, I
Right.
guess, changes the energy, the dynamics. Like,
Well, you know what it reminds me of, actually, all of these stories is, if you were to report a similar phenomenon, say a couple
Yeah.
hundred years ago in the British Isles, people would have
Yeah.
said that you were being pixie led, they would have said fairies did it, right?
Wow.
And one of the common cures for being pixie led is to do something like, say, take your clothes and turn them inside out, right? So there is
to fool them.
Right. Yeah. So there is this like reversal element to unsticking yourself from this situation. And when you're talking about these friends of yours basically curing themselves of this affliction by running the other way, that's the first thing that I think of in that situation, which makes me wonder if there was any other phenomena experienced in that house, because there are all manner of house fairies and things that exist in folklore, at least, right? Like people have talked about over the centuries. So who knows? It's
well, the one that Wayne's friend says, he said that kid was, so that one story came from Wayne, and he said he got in a lot of trouble because his parents were looking for him for 2 hours. He swears he was only gone a few minutes. And he said nothing out of the ordinary in the house before or after that. So he did think to ask.
Wow. Interesting. Well, good on you, Wayne. I'm glad you were there to investigate that, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So, well, interesting though.
People just, it's amazing. I'm thinking, because the other person, I'm like, why am I only hearing about this like now? So yeah, fascinating stuff. What are your take on time slips and dimensional shifts?
Sure. Well, I think it's a fascinating phenomenon, or set of phenomena, really. You get these reports of people seemingly experiencing things out of time, either anachronistic events, say witnessing a building standing, long after it has been demolished, or even interacting with the people inside. And I think that our understanding of time, or really our ability to understand time because of our limited perception, is itself very limited, right? So I'm reminded of, have you ever seen the movie Interstellar?
Yes.
It's a great movie, right? Yeah. And so so they've got this this four-dimensional construct basically that makes an appearance in that movie. And I always think about what it would be like for, say, a being who exists in dimensions that we don't, to perceive something like time, because we perceive time as very linear, but that doesn't mean that is strictly the case, that's just how we perceive it. And so another creature might perceive it completely differently. They might see all events happening simultaneously as a series of probabilistic waves or something, right? So like for them, time would be very, very different than it is for us. And if that is the case, if that is to say there are events sort of happening simultaneously, and we're just limited by our perception to view them linearly, then I would think that under certain circumstances, it might be possible for us to perceive things out of time, right? And so I don't know if that would involve, say, an altered state of consciousness, maybe, where there's something going on that allows you to perceive things differently, and so you're able to see something outside of our normal perception of time, or what.
But does it even exist? Does time even exist? Right?
Right. Yeah. It could just be a construct. Yeah. It's our way to try to explain things like cellular deterioration and
Mandela
the orbiting of stellar bodies and things, right? It's just a way for us to measure what we perceive of as the universe around us. But you're right. It doesn't, like most things, it has only as much meaning as we have decided to invest in it, really. So,
yes, there's so many stories of time slips that I've read through research for for shows and such. And you hear it, they'll walk into a store and it's something I felt like it was back 100 years, come back out, things are normal. Then there was this one story that I read about a woman who woke up. So she's in her own apartment. I'd love to know your take on this. Woke up in her own apartment, wearing different pajamas. Things seemed a little bit different. She thought, okay, got up, went to work. The address she went to was the same address, same company, different building. Like it was just different. And all of a sudden, her fiance of 7 years didn't exist. Like he was nowhere. She looked days for him. His daughter, who, was like her stepdaughter, non-existent. So she researched. She hired a private investigator. She went and had like tests done. Like, am I okay? Is something, wrong with me psychologically? It got to a point she exhausted everything, and there was a reward out. Now, when I looked this up about 5 years ago for another show I did, she at that time had a reward out for anybody that could get her back to her own timeline. Somehow she figured out that some sort of shift happened.
Sure. Well, I mean, that is fascinating and tragic, of course. If this represents a real phenomenon that actually happened to this poor woman, the idea that there are parallel universes, right? Like that's nothing new. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
am a writer. My degree is in English. And so
Yes.
like I am not a scientist. I
Right.
try to rely on scientists and other
Yeah.
experts for information. But
Yeah.
my understanding is that within the realm of physics, like the idea of parallel universes, while not wholly accepted, is very much theorized. It's just that I don't know that we found a way to necessarily prove it yet,
Yeah.
but it seems to be gaining popularity. And
Mhm.
so I would think under those circumstances, if there are parallel universes, these other timelines. So if you
Mhm.
if you think about what I was saying before, where you've got this fourth dimensional being, and the way they view time is as all of these myriad events happening simultaneously in the form of probabilistic waves, right? And then you collapse this wavelength and the actual event happens, right?
Mhm.
So under those circumstances, every single one of those, right? Like every single one of those possibilities would be its own timeline. And thus, if you were to shift somehow from one
Mm.
to another, maybe you would just have very minor changes. I don't know, like your
Mhm.
dog would have a different name or something. Or maybe people that you love would never have existed, or you never would have met them, or something equally horrifying. So
Mhm.
who knows? But I think that
Yeah.
something like that is possible. I don't, whether or not it happened is anybody's guess,
Yeah.
but boy,
Yes.
I can't even imagine how terrifying that would be.
Yeah, I can't imagine either. It's just bizarre because you're in your own space. You know, we I have equipment that I purchased that I like to test, and I had ordered a specific piece that I had designed for me. And you could hear it. Voices come through it. It's not a ghost box, nothing like that. But somehow, maybe all the planets were lined up a certain way, voices started coming through. Now, this thing will work with shortwave radios, it'll work with scanners, all kinds of things. And it's at first I thought I'm listening to a really bad 50s B movie. Like something's just really weird with this thing. And the first time I ever tested it, I didn't know really a whole lot about it, what it was supposed to do, but I know that I used it in reverse. So anything that came through, to speak would be in reverse. So therefore they had to come into forward speech, if you know what I'm saying. It made it more credible when it comes through that way. So anyways, it's just the way the piece works. Anyhow,
Hmm.
an old it sounded like an old plane with propellers, and there were what sounded like three men. And at first, again, like I'm one of these like crossing something somewhere, except for the fact that they could see us and described us perfectly. So as they started speaking, it sounded military, Air Force. And I said, I'll bite. What's your rank and position? Major, blah, 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 so and so, ma'am. And just like it was a full, I'm like, what's your position? We got 2 coordinates out of 3 in the coordinates, which seemed to be somewhere over the Pacific when we looked it up. And they're like, I'm like, what do you see? Nothing. It's completely dark. We're lost. I'm like, okay. I was so taken off guard. All these sessions get recorded, and there were other people there, so I wasn't the only one there to hear this. And all of a sudden, they're talking amongst each other, and they're saying, it's a man. We see a man and a woman sitting at a table. They have electricity. Described it perfectly. The door's open. I'm like, oh, do not go through that door. I just had visions of a military plane or an Air Force a plane coming through knocking the tower off the house. I'm just like, I really didn't know what to expect. And then they started pleading. They're like, please, please help us. We're lost. We're lost. And then it died. And we were like,
wow.
We just looked at each other. We were just like, what just happened here? We just tried, and when I looked up, the environment and everything that night, it turns out that the planets, 5 planets, were lined up a certain way. So because we tried exactly the same time, the same date, the following year. We've never been able to get anything back. And we have tried, I have talked to friends of mine in the military and in the Air Force. This is, do you know anything about this? And like so many went down. So many planes went down. Right. It's hard to, I said, they sounded American because it sounded like a real 50s type of, 40s, 50s type of accents. And, you just watch those old movies, like sure. They have that, yeah. And that's exactly what
people spoke with like a very noticeable cadence and everything different than we do today. So sure.
Yeah, it says it's dark, ma'am. We lost. We don't know where we are. We need help. That was something else I was saying.
That is
different languages. Yes, that's right. Cassidy. But like it says, like Wayne's father was in the British Navy, actually. So many went missing during that time. Yeah. So we just have like it's a crazy world out there, but it
right.
Does.
It just makes me wonder what exactly you were experiencing there. Was that a communication across time? Was that a communication with the spirits of a deceased person or persons who were just trapped in this moment, experiencing it, over and over again? Who knows? And the fact
they
that
would describe us perfectly.
Right.
Perfectly.
And they could perceive you somehow, which is fascinating.
I've never had an experience like that before. I've never had one like that since.
Yeah. No, I've never even heard of something like that. That is fascinating.
I've been doing this a long time. And it's just,
yeah.
This left us sort of like, wow. We put that information out to people to try to find it. Like, like I said, talk to friends of mine and military who, also Air Force. And it's just like, you can't even peg that. And they give us like 2 out of 3 coordinates. It could have been like anybody. The whole Pacific was in Atlantic. I mean, of course. Yeah. So I was just like, oh, but you always have that. You should have said, okay, come on through. What would have happened? I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, I thought I would share that being on the topic. So there's definitely some people caught in limbo somewhere. So on to more fun stuff.
Right. Well, it reminds me because that's such an excellent example of a high strangeness case, right? Because you can't say with any certainty what the source of the phenomenon was, right? Like you can't say, oh, this was for sure a ghost. Like this was the persistence of personality postmortem. You can't say for sure that this was a time slip. You can't even say for sure that like this wasn't some weird trickster entity just messing with you. You know, like there are so many possibilities.
Remote viewer.
Who knows, right?
I
Like
know. It was
just,
interesting. It's one
yeah.
of those aha moments that I could keep back and go, that was pretty interesting. That was pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. Well, and that's, like I said, that's sort of the heart of high strangeness, are these cases that are so weird,
Mhm.
just so defiant of our expectations of how things are supposed to work, even the paranormal, that
Yes.
it's difficult to classify them. So
Yes.
that is, yeah, that's great.
Yes. Yeah, Wayne says, my personal feeling is that the plane and crew vanished into possibly another dimension. Somehow during that night, their voices came through like my friend, but only gone a few minutes. So, like, yeah, again, kind of going through the waves. I mean, you look at the whole planet, everything is just all waves and energy lines. And, when you factor in ley lines and vortices and everything else, I mean, it's all energy. Everything's energy. Put it out into the consciousness. Can we pick that up?
Sure.
The
Yeah. I
collective
mean,
consciousness,
right. Well, I think that's really interesting. And I think that consciousness plays such a big role in
Yeah.
these experiences. I just through my own research and interviewing witnesses and things, it seems apparent to me that altered states of consciousness might play a role in this, and that
Yeah.
people hear that phrase and they think it's got to be some weird thing, but it's not. I mean, we all
Mhm.
cycle through them all day, every day.
Yes.
Everything from meditation to waking up to falling asleep to
Mhm.
daydreaming. Like these are all altered states of consciousness.
Mhm.
And so, like, the idea that there is a certain confluence of events involving our consciousness that needs to take place, or at a minimum makes it much more likely for us to be able to experience the paranormal, doesn't seem that strange to me. And so in the case of these pilots or whoever
Mm.
you're talking to,
Mhm.
is it possible that, yeah, maybe they were stuck in some
Yeah.
weird dimension or something, and you were only able to communicate with them at that specific time
Mhm.
because those specific planets were in alignment on top of your consciousness being in the state that it needed to be in for you to be
Mhm.
able to connect with them, and they
Yeah.
had the right window to be able to communicate at that
Mhm.
specific time. And who knows if it'll ever happen again.
All the ducks were in a row. That's all I can
Right.
say. And it's never happened since. But it just goes to show you, we live in this amazing world with this just touching on tiny little bits of areas that are, I always say high strangers. Thank you, John Keel. I always say high strangers because it seems to encompass everything
Sure.
that's just, out of the norm. So,
Right. Well, and it's so many of
yeah.
the phenomena that people report too. Like, I can't tell you how many people have come to me because they've experienced something when they were just waking up, or experienced something in bed. I've even had witnesses who have reported something to me that they saw, that under other circumstances would be a nighttime visitation because it was happening to someone who was in bed, but the person witnessing it was not, which is this
Wow.
weird confirmation, yeah, of like the connection between the paranormal and nighttime visitations. Like, I can give you a good example of that. Did I
Yes,
ever tell you
please.
about my specific experiences growing up and with like shadow people and waking up with a shadow person next to my bed? Have I told you that before?
I think you touched on that, and
Okay.
that because we were like mostly Mothman, but I may have asked you about your,
Okay. Let me, you
experiences.
know what? For anybody who hasn't heard that
Do it
before,
again.
I'll go over it again. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
take that
do
long,
it
and it's
again.
directly relevant to the case that I
Yes.
want to talk about after that. So, the reason that I'm interested in all of this stuff, so just for a little bit of background for everybody listening, is because throughout my life, starting at a very young age, I have experienced a series of seemingly paranormal events. And among those events has been the appearance or intrusion of shadow people into my life. And so there was one night in my early 20s, I was living at home with my parents at that time. And I woke up very suddenly. I'd gone to bed normally, but I suddenly found myself awake, and there was no obvious stimulus like that I could recognize as being why I was so suddenly awake. And so I noticed a couple of things right away. Like I'm on top of my covers, which is weird, and I'm not paralyzed or anything. And so I look around and I notice that my perspective is a little off, and it takes me a second for it to click. But I recognize that the reason for that seems to be that I am floating a few feet above my bed. And so, as I mentioned before, I could move, but I decided it probably wasn't a great idea to move at that moment, because again, I'm floating above my bed. I don't know what's going on. And so I'm looking around, and as I look around, I notice to my left there is this figure standing next to me, and it appears to be the all black silhouette of a person standing there. And again, in this moment, I am struck with the realization that I'm not supposed to be awake for this. It just seemed to me like there was no way I was supposed to be awake. This must be an accident, And so I'm looking at this thing, and that thought occurs to me, and it reaches its hand out at that point, and puts its hand on my chest. And I always interpreted that as sort of being comforting. Like it also was like, oh crap, like this guy's not supposed to be awake for this. I got to calm him down before he freaks out or something.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and then at that point, I'm lowered back down to my bed, and this figure vanishes. Like they're just gone. And so I laid there for a little bit, and at that point in my life, again, this was in my early 20s, so this is 20 years of me experiencing similar things. Although this was a pretty
That's frightening,
extreme
though.
example,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and so I didn't freak out. I didn't get up and start waking everybody in the house up or anything, because I knew that was pointless. And at that point, I also realized that if I was going to be hurt, I'd be hurt by now. Like if they wanted to hurt me, I would be hurt. So I was fine. And so I just laid there for a while, thought about it, and then eventually went back to bed. But what's really interesting about this are two different things, right? The first one came several years later. I was at a family wedding in Dayton, Ohio. And after the wedding, my brother and I had decided that we were going to go out for some drinks, and so we went to this bar nearby the hotel. And at this point in my life, again, I'm early 20s. Nobody associates me with the paranormal. Like my family does not associate me with the paranormal. I'm writing books yet. I wasn't even like investigating stuff yet. I didn't do that until my late 20s. And so, there was no reason for anybody in my family to associate me with paranormal phenomena or investigation or anything like that. And so, it was just my brother and I. There were other people in this bar, but we were the only two from the wedding party who decided we were going to go out. And so we're sitting there and we're just chatting, right? And at one point I was just like, hey, I got to ask you, has anything weird ever happened to you at mom and dad's house? And he kind of looks at me and he's just like, what do you mean? Like weird how? And I'm just like, just anything weird. I don't know. And he's like, well, there was one time where I woke up and there was this black figure standing next to my bed. And I just looked at it. Right. And like, he was just like, and I just looked at it and I assumed that I must be seeing things. And I just rolled over or whatever. And I immediately got chills, of course. I was just like, and I to this day, I haven't told him about what happened to me. And I don't think he reads my books or anything. I hope he's not listening to this and mad that I'm telling everybody that he told me he saw this thing. But yeah, I mean, like I didn't know what to say. I was just like, wow, that is truly bizarre. And then I did not tell him what happened to me.
Wow. So what do you think the shadow person is? This is so many different theories. Yeah.
There's this element of like observation to it. So I'll tell you, and I've got one other related experience, one other experience that was brought to me by a total stranger, actually, that relates to these events. And I think, why don't I go over that, and then maybe we can kind of speculate about what we think is behind it, because this experience was also so very validating to my own in a way that was very similar to, my sibling coming forward about what had happened to him. So I was contacted by this woman, Olga, out of Rogers, Minnesota, back in, several years ago. I want to say 2020. And the reason that she had contacted me is she wanted to tell me about a series of weird events that were happening in her home. And so I got her on the phone, and she started by relating to me this experience that had happened 8 years earlier. So she said 8 years ago at that time, so like 2012-ish, she was on the phone downstairs talking with one of her friends, and her grandson, whose name is Toby, by the way. This is a fascinating synchronicity. Kid has the same name as me. And so her grandson, Toby, that she has custody of, was sleeping upstairs. He was maybe 4 years old at that time. And so he's asleep upstairs. She's on the phone downstairs, and she looks over to see this shadow figure, like this shadow person, sort of gliding up the stairs towards his room. So she had never seen anything like that before. And so naturally, very concerned, she quickly ends her phone call and runs up there to check on him, but she doesn't see anything. Like, he's fine. He's fast asleep. There's no shadow person lurking around. So, she tells her son about it. He kind of laughs it off. He's like, oh, whatever, Mom, you're seeing things. Until he sees a shadow person like lurking around the house too. Other family members would also go on to see anomalous balls of light. Her son would even later, and her son even later would experience what seemed like a phantom or invisible person or something sitting down on his bed. And then it gets really weird years later, and this is why she actually called me, was because things had kind of started up again. And by that, she meant what had happened was one of Toby's cousins was sleeping over. And while he was sleeping over, like, they were asleep in the same room. I guess they had a couple of beds in there, so, when his cousin came over, they would both sleep in the same bedroom. And his cousin is kind of a restless sleeper. And so he woke up during this sleepover and said that he saw this completely black figure standing in the doorway to this bedroom. And it seemed to be, from his perspective, looking at Toby, staring at him, like watching him sleep. And then this kid goes on to say that when the thing seemed to notice that he was awake, it just disappeared. Like, that's when it vanished.
That's creepy.
And I was like, right. And I'm just like, what? That was me. Like, I was, I still am Toby, but you know what I mean? Like, like that was me when I was a kid. I was the kid being watched while he slept, or, floated out of his bed or whatever. My brother was too. And to hear it later from a total stranger in a different state,
Mm-hmm.
who is just concerned for her grandson, an
Yeah.
experience that so closely mirrors
Mm-hmm.
something that I just assumed had never happened to anybody outside of my family, right? Like,
Wow.
it just blows my mind. It
It's
does. It like
it,
that kind of
it is it's
corroboration.
craziness. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's just fascinating.
that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, I'm gonna have a comment that pertains to that, and I want to put this one up first. Cassidy says, I live in the Appalachian. Oh, so lucky. The Appalachian Mountains and woke up to something on my bed and it jumped off, went through my window. I could hear it running down the ridge. It was very real. Never saw a single thing, just sounds. And now pertaining
Interesting.
to that is wiggy, but I'm not surprised in the Appalachians, to be honest. I'm not. It's a great place. She says, Louisa says, have you ever considered that you and your families might be contactees?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's one of those things that you have to consider in that situation. Because there is
Yeah.
that element of
Yeah.
observation. It very much felt like I was being watched. It felt like my brother was being watched. It felt like this kid in Minnesota was being watched.
Hmm.
And what's so fascinating to me about these shadow like person encounters, and then really sort of specifically what had happened to me and the other people that I was just talking about,
Hmm.
is depending on your beliefs, like your personal bias, you will interpret these events totally different from somebody else with different beliefs and
Yeah.
a different set of biases. Like if you're really into ghosts and hauntings, you
Yeah.
might look at that and go, "Oh, well, you live in a haunted house." Like
Yes.
that. That was a ghost or something. That was some kind of spirit. If you're into UFOs and alien abduction, then yeah, naturally, like you look at that and be like, "Oh, well, maybe you were abducted or something similar."
Hmm.
Um, and neither one of those is necessarily right or wrong, but
Hmm.
it does, again, I think it cuts right to the heart of high strangeness. These cases are too weird
Hmm.
to classify
And
easily.
and so similar, like almost exact.
Right. It is, like I never saw any kind of craft. I don't ever have any memory of being taken aboard any kind of craft.
Hmm.
I have had experiences where I have seen what people would describe as, traditional gray aliens.
Yeah.
All of them have had weird, like apparitional qualities to them.
Hmm.
They didn't seem completely like solid physical beings.
Hmm.
Um, and so again, like like I can see a gray alien and it acts like a ghost. Like that's weird. You can't say with any certainty that, right, you
Hmm.
can't say with any certainty
Yeah.
that is an extraterrestrial physical being from some
Hmm.
other planet when it is appearing to you
Hmm.
in a weird visionary state or seemingly like floating or moving through walls or something.
Hmm.
It's not outside of the realm of possibility. If you
Hmm.
start, I think, considering what kind of technology it would take to get here from another planet and what they might be capable of, sure, like you could absolutely, I think, you could fit that in your imagination, and that would be totally fine.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I don't think we could speak with like any certainty,
Hmm.
because there's just so much crossover between these phenomena, and so many people want to categorize them very carefully and put them each in their own little box. But
Yeah.
there's just so much overlap.
Now, Dolly says it may have been a second dimensional being watching you.
That, I mean, that's something that I've considered too. The extra dimensional possibility, right? That these are being, and I talk about this a lot,
Hmm.
really, like ad nauseum, really,
Yeah.
about the idea that potentially some of what we're dealing with are beings that exist in and are capable of perceiving dimensions that we are not, which is why they seem to be able to just appear and disappear at will.
Mhm.
And the potential, I think, for our own consciousness to exist in dimensions that are not perceptible to our physical form, for instance. So if you think of like human consciousness as something that might exist non-locally in space and time, and maybe in dimensions that your physical eyes are incapable of perceiving, then I think it starts to make more sense that altered states of consciousness might lead to more paranormal experiences, right? So like in a way, you're sort of perceiving things without the restriction of your physical form at that point, right? Like if you're capable of experiencing something sort of directly through consciousness, and human consciousness exists in this state of extra dimensionality, right? Then then I think all of a sudden so much of this makes so much more sense. Everything from ESP to remote viewing to out of body experiences and seeing ghosts or whatever, it all seems to make so much more sense to me at that point.
I
So
think so. There's one theory with shadow people that I've heard is that they're travelers.
okay,
Yeah,
like
that's
travelers
what I
in
said.
what sense?
Yeah, like they're just time travelers. That they
Oh, I
can
see.
just sort of bounce around. Yeah. I took it another step and I said, what if it's just, there's a belief that when we sleep, we travel. I'm kind of
Interesting.
wondering. Yeah. I mean,
Sure.
it's so many different places or ways and theories that you can explore. I think it just makes it that much more exciting. I have a question and a comment. As Cassidy, as per her prior comment, as a person who's met many things, yes, you have. I can only imagine a skinwalker or shadow person, with it being so deep in the area we are in. I have my ideas, but one never knows. Yeah, open mind, open mind. So,
Absolutely.
question. Watchers, good, bad, or indifferent?
I mean, I think that's the $6 million question there, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the thing we have to consider. From my perspective, like I mentioned before, I've never been physically harmed.
Yeah.
If and I don't know anybody else who has been physically harmed.
Yes.
So I think you'd have to consider from that standpoint, if we were going to be hurt, we'd probably be hurt by now.
Yes.
And you could maybe reasonably assume that at worst they are indifferent, sort of objective scientists or something, right, in their observation, because they don't seem to be actively harming people, or they don't seem to want to actively harm people. I don't see a lot of good in it. Like it doesn't seem like something that has really helped me out a lot in
Yeah.
my life, honestly,
But it is a good tale to tell. Yeah.
It is. So
Yes.
yeah, like I don't see a lot of positive outcomes necessarily.
Mhm.
I don't see a lot of bad outcomes. So I think indifferent. I think that they do things for their own reasons that we may or may not ever understand. We may not even be capable of understanding.
True.
And that's just it. Like that's the whole story. Like they do what they're gonna do, and they can seemingly do it to us at will. And boy, are we lucky it doesn't seem to be for any nefarious reason, I guess, considering.
Yeah. Different people have had different experiences. I often tend to wonder if it has to do with the person. If you're calm and you don't seem to be concerned, and then you get those who are, energy might be a little bit different. They may be a little panicked. They might be a little angry. Um, I wonder if that's why they behave differently with different people. So people write into you about UFOs, extraterrestrial experiences? Do you have any of those you'd like to share?
Sure. Well, all of this talk of nighttime visitations reminds me of an abduction experience I received from a young woman out of Janesville, Wisconsin. And she wanted to talk to me about an experience she'd had one night when she had fallen asleep on the couch in her apartment, which is not particularly unusual. I think we've all been there. Like, you get sleepy, you fall asleep on the couch,
Sure.
you don't make it all the way to bed. Sure.
Sure.
And so she had fallen asleep, and she told me that she woke up to a light that that had come in from the front of their house. And so she thought that maybe her roommate was home or something. And so she got up to go check and see what was going on, like see if there was somebody at the door. She was hoping it was her roommate, because it was very late at night. And if it was somebody, trying to break in, or somebody who had ill intentions or something, then she wanted to know about it in case she needed to call the police or whatever. And so she gets up, and the front door of where they lived had this, it was like sectioned off. So it had this kind of like half wall that was in an L shape. So you would have to go around it to see the front door. And so I guess they were renting a house, actually. But anyway, and so she gets up and she goes to check on the front door, and she goes around this wall, that kind of blocks sight of the door. And when she does, she sees this little being standing there, this 4 foot tall gray alien, basically large head, big black eyes. Small slit for a mouth. Like, we're all familiar at this point what gray aliens are supposed to look like in the popular consciousness. And so she sees this thing, and this is one of the most interesting parts of the story for me. She sees this thing. She's startled, she's terrified, in fact. And so she screams. And she said when she screamed, it screamed.
Oh.
So she screams, it
guy.
screams back. Yeah. And she takes off running. She's running for her bedroom. I don't know what was going through her head. I don't think she knew exactly what was going through her head in that moment. Only that maybe, she could try to get to a phone and call somebody. And when she does, she makes it like halfway across the living room. Actually, like just past that couch, and she says she's struck by this blue beam, and when she is, like, her entire body starts tingling, like vibrating and tingling, and she's floated up into the air, and she's put in a horizontal position, and this beam is floating her back towards the couch. And she told me that while this was happening, this singular thought kept going through her head over and over again. And she kept telling herself, they're going to try to make you think this is a dream. This is not a dream. This is happening. And she kept thinking that to herself over and over again. And this beam lowers her down to the couch, and then it's gone. And the entire house is dark and quiet and empty of any aliens or anything. And that was it. And I wanted to be very clear with her on what exactly had happened. So I asked her, when it was all over, when she found herself on that couch, did it feel like she was waking up?
Mm-hmm.
And it did not really. She said there's no rising to consciousness, like there was no groggy feeling, no shaking off of a sleep state or anything. She was just, suddenly all that stuff was gone, and she was lying down on this couch. And so I think the possibility that it was all a dream or something under those circumstances with her testimony is very, very low. And it's so fascinating to me that what was going through her head was this determination of, hey, this is not a dream. They're going to try to make you think it's a dream, but it's not. This is happening. Because whether she had a conscious recall of it or not, to me, that seems to imply that this had happened to her before at some point.
Wow.
And, either she had written it off as a dream or she just didn't remember it or something, which is fascinating. Like, that's just one. I keep saying fascinating, but it is all very fascinating.
I say that and interesting, two of my favorite words.
Right? I know.
I mean, how else to describe it, though? There really isn't, there aren't too many words that sums it all up. Fascinating, interesting. It is. I mean, contactees do have multiple, tend to have multiple experiences. And a lot of times you don't remember, but there are so many who do. Dolly in chat here, she's fully conscious of all of her, fully aware. But it's one of those things, like, it's good that she could at least remember that, this woman, because I mean, a lot of people have to go in through regression therapy. And then I think to myself, if I don't remember it, maybe it's because I'm not supposed to. Maybe there's just something. Maybe
that was my feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Like when I woke up, I was like, I'm not supposed to be awake for this. And well, that's not even the first time that's happened to me. Actually, that's not the only time that has happened to me. I mean, several years ago, my wife and I were in bed, and she was asleep. She always sleeps through everything. And I remember waking up because there was this bright light shining in my eyes, like directly into my eyes. It reminded me of, if you've ever been to the optometrist and they do that thing where they like shine the light directly in your eye and they see how close they can get it like to your eyeball and you have to hold completely still. It was like that, basically. Like, I woke up to that kind of light shining in both eyes. And as I did, I was like, again, I had that old familiar feeling. I am not supposed to be awake for this. Like, what is happening? This is so unusual. And this time, rather than it disappearing, as soon as I thought that, I just faded out of consciousness. Like, I literally, even though I was incredibly disturbed by what was happening, I couldn't, if I wanted to, keep myself awake. I just fell into unconsciousness. Yeah. So who knows what was going on?
And she never saw anything.
No, my wife, no. Like, she's had paranormal experiences, but like the really weird stuff like that, she's always asleep.
It's like, I'm good.
It's not for her. They're not coming for her. They're coming for me. So.
You're not wrong. There's so many people that I've talked to through the many years where things are happening to them in bed and their spouses are out cold. It's like they're put in this almost comatose state. And all of this stuff is happening to the one person. And like, why didn't you do something? Like, I was dead to the world, like, for real. Like, I really, they report being in this really deep sound sleep.
Oh, for sure. Like, I don't blame her at all. I don't think there's anything she could do, like, awake or not, right?
Or she's just laying there going, I know what's going on, and I'm just not going there.
Right. She just rolls over. She's pretending to be asleep the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it.
Could be a thing.
No, I mean, it's true though. Like, that is this sort of common recurring theme among people with these nighttime visitation experiences, whatever they are, of, you're thinking you're not supposed to be awake for this. The just the surrealness of it often, and the idea that there is some strange connection, like, to consciousness. I'll give you an example of a sort of strange visitation I had from, like, a seemingly a seeming gray alien, right?
Mhm.
So this would have been years ago before I even met my wife, and I was house sitting for my parents, and I was just watching television. I was staying at their house so I could watch their dog, and at the time I rented, so it was a nice vacation to stay at their house.
Mhm.
And I was just watching TV. It was the middle of the afternoon, just a totally normal afternoon.
Wow.
The dog's asleep on the floor,
Mm.
and I remember all of a sudden, and this was so weird. All of a sudden, I just had this overpowering like lethargy, right? Like I just couldn't keep my eyes open. There was nothing I could do. Like I went from 100% like dialed in, watching TV, wide awake, middle of the afternoon, to literally could not keep my eyes open, and
Mm.
just slumped over onto the couch, like literally like fell over onto it from like where I was sitting. And as soon as I did, like my eyes close, I fall over, and as soon as I am lying down there, I see in my mind's eye, right, this pinpoint of light, and it starts zooming towards me. And as it got closer, well, it seemed like it was zooming towards me, right? Like again, this
Mhm.
is all happening on the level of consciousness, right? Like there's no real space here, and at least not how like we would conceive of
Mm.
it. And so as this light seems to be getting closer and closer and closer, it takes shape, and it looks like the head of this gray alien, right? Like this large ovoid
Wow.
head, large black eyes, and this slit for a mouth. And it gets right in my face, right? Like it's taking up my whole field of vision, and it's just right here, like right in front of my face. And I'm not scared or anything. I did think that this was weird, but I don't know why I wasn't scared, honestly, because now that when I talk about it, I'm like, that honestly sounds kind of scary, but
Yeah.
I wasn't. And
Yeah.
it gets right up to me, and it doesn't open its mouth or anything, but it says to me, it says, "We are you." And then as soon as it says that, like it's delivering this message, it's like, hey, I got this super important message to tell you, and the message is, "We are you." And then as soon as it says that, it goes right back the way it came. So it just zooms back off into the distance of my mind's eye, and that's it. And then I'm wide awake again, like all of a sudden. And this is in the span of 10 seconds, right? I go from totally normal, wide awake, to cannot keep my eyes open, unconscious, to gray alien head flying up, delivering this bizarre message. It disappears. I'm wide awake again. Like my eyes open, and I'm not tired at all. Just completely wide awake.
Do you know what's
So,
strange about what you're saying to me? That I have had people say to me, I have one experience like that myself, but I have had people say to me that whether it's paranormal or whether it's like extraterrestrial related, that there are messages that says, "We are you, you are us, we are one."
that's wild.
Like that seems to be like a common message. It's
It
crazy
is,
though.
and
Yeah.
it is. I don't know how to interpret it exactly. I think there are a lot of different ways that you
Mhm.
could. I mean, well, you mentioned, say, like time travelers, right? Like, what
Mhm.
if these entities are highly evolved humans from the far future? Like, who knows? What if they are like disincarnate entities?
Yeah.
Well, hell, what if they're disincarnate like entities, and so are we, and the only difference is that we're inhabiting these biological
These
physical
meat
forms,
meat
and they're
suits.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're wearing meat
Yeah.
suits, and they
Yeah.
aren't. You know.
See, there's just it's crazy, but it's just things like that. Like it just shows me that there's this vast connection because there's
Hmm.
people from all walks of life who are having similar experiences. So
Oh, absolutely.
aside from the connections that just happen within all of these levels, these fields, people are having very, very similar experiences. So, okay. What's the weirdest thing that anybody's written you about? Absolute
Oh boy.
freaking weirdest thing that kind of left you
I
going,
mean,
yeah.
there's so many. Like I think some of the series of events that people have described are some of the strangest. I had a woman I spoke to in Kenosha, that's in Wisconsin too,
Okay.
and she wanted to tell me about waking up one night. This would have been back in, I want to say 2009-ish.
Mm.
And she had woken up one night to see this amber colored orb inside of like a charcoal colored cloud. And it
Ooh,
was just
that's different.
floating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd never heard of anything like it. Just floating in the corner of her room. And in case anybody thinks this was some short encounter where she just kind of woke up for a second, saw this thing, rolled over, and went back to sleep.
Mm.
Oh no. So
Mm.
she wakes up, she sees this thing. Again, it's like this charcoal cloud, and inside of it is this glowing amber orb. And so she wakes up, she sees this thing. She's not afraid. Again, this is a situation where she doesn't know why she's not afraid. She probably should have been, but she
Mhm.
wasn't. She didn't feel any fear. So she sees this thing, and it's otherwise dark in her bedroom. It's the middle of the night, and she sees this thing, and the first thing that occurs to her, she's like, "Oh, I must be asleep," like whatever. And so she like rolls over, thinking that like this was just a dream that had somehow bled into real life or something. And she realizes then that she's not asleep because she can't get back to sleep. She's like
Mhm.
wide awake at this point.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh man. And she looks over again and it's still there. And she's just like, okay. She doesn't know what to do. But again, like she's not scared at all. So she watches this thing and she's just like, okay, I must be hallucinating. I don't know. I'm just going to try to go back to sleep. And she rolls over again, and so she keeps checking to see if this thing is there, and it still is. And this goes on for like 20 minutes of her like trying to go back to sleep, not being able to get to sleep, looking over. Yup, the orange orb is still in the corner of my bedroom.
So strange. It's just hanging there.
Right. And then like eventually, yeah, she says like after some time she must have fallen back asleep because which who knows if this is what really happened or not, but she thinks she must have fallen back asleep because she doesn't have any conscious memory after that time, and then she's suddenly awake and it's morning. So did she fall back asleep? Did something else happen to her during that time that she just doesn't have any conscious memory of? Who's to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is very strange.
It was strange. And that's not the only weird thing that has happened to this woman or her family, actually, because she kind of grew up in a haunted house. But the haunting wasn't really centered around her necessarily. What would happen, she said, one of her brothers used to get in trouble all the time because he would be found sleeping in their basement. And now it was a finished basement, I think. But like his parents would just yell at him and get so mad because he needed to sleep all night in his bed. Why was he going down into the basement to sleep? And every single time he would say, look, it's not me. Don't yell at me. Tell it to the man who picks me up out of bed and carries me down here.
Okay, see right there.
Horrifying.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And right. And so like she had kind of, I think, blown it off a bit, right? Because back then this stuff hadn't really started happening to her.
Sure.
But when she had moved out, she had started having weird experiences. Like she told me about once she had returned to her apartment and she was getting ready for bed, and so she was taking her socks off and she threw one of her socks at the hamper, and it acted like it hit some invisible object and hung in midair for a second and then dropped straight down to the floor. Like if the invisible man was standing there or something, it would have hit, like that's who it hit, and then it just fell straight down. Right. Which again is terrifying.
That is.
And so that kind of stuff started to happen to her. And she also noticed there was a certain point where one of her parents required a caregiver. And so she would stay at their house sometimes too. And I guess the caregivers had, there was more than one, they'd had their own experiences. But this lady also said that while she would stay in the guest room there, she would experience, well, like an invisible person sitting on the bed next to her, which is something that Olga's son in Minnesota had also reported during, their series of weird visitations. She said that something would like pull her hair, or sometimes kind of calmly stroke it and stuff, which also sounds creepy. I don't think I would like that at all. I mean,
touchy feely stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks. No, it's
yeah.
Yeah. Like I do not consent.
No.
So like, yeah, that kind of stuff would happen. And of course, at that point, she has to ask herself, well, those things that my brother used to say, like about the man who would come and take him and carry him into our basement, and that's why he was he was always found down there sleeping. Should I have taken that more seriously? Because after you experience that amount of weird stuff, all of a sudden the stories other people used to tell that you maybe thought were just a little bit too weird, they sound a lot less weird at that point.
Yeah, like what was the obsession with moving him?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, was it even a human being? Is this another case where you've got another family being targeted by something that isn't even human necessarily? And so he's interpreting it as a man picking him up and taking him downstairs. That could be that the thing, whatever it is appearing in the form of a man. That could be a child interpreting something roughly humanoid as being a man, because of their limited experience there. And this is everybody, everybody struggles to put into words these experiences because they are so alien, like they're so far outside of our normal experience that people don't even have the words often to describe what has happened to them. And so you get it, or like you get them trying to relate them to like pop culture references or just anything, any normal thing they can cling to try to describe this impossible event that has happened to them, And so could this just be that, where this kid, who knows what actually took him out of bed, but he described it as the man who came at night and took him out of bed into the basement for some reason.
Cameras come into mind. That would happen one time. I would have cameras all over the dang house. Let me tell you.
Well, this would have been
insane. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, this was decades ago though, I guess. So
right. So there wouldn't have been.
Maybe before. Yeah, before like that would have been commonplace. You couldn't just have like, wireless cameras that you bought for $50 all over your house. It would have been much more expensive.
Yeah.
So she even had another experience. Sorry, and I don't know if this is related, but when she was married, her husband at the time, like she's since divorced, but her husband at the time, back in I think probably 2002, he had this electric typewriter. And she said that one day it started typing on its own, just this same sequence of letters, like over and over and over again, which was very strange and should not have been happening. So there was really a series of events happening like to this woman and her family.
I can't imagine.
So who knows?
So Wayne is asking for clarification. He said it was carried to the basement, not led to the basement.
Correct. Yes, the kids, like he was consistent in saying that he was being carried down to that basement.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Um, Janie asks, this is just backstepping a moment. When you were having the light shown in your eye, she was asking how old you were at that time.
I would have been in my 30s, actually.
Right.
This was not that long ago. Let's see.
Oh,
We
wow.
still lived in Madison. It was before we bought our house. So this was probably 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
really wasn't that long ago, honestly.
Yeah. That's
Maybe
crazy.
7 at the absolute most. So
Yeah.
I'm 46
An
now.
adult. Yeah. An adult,
Yeah, so
essentially.
I would have been in like my
Yeah.
my late 30s.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Let's jump over to cryptids.
Sure, why
Yeah.
not?
Let's jump over to cryptids. What's the freakiest cryptid? Because Mothman's not freaky
Oh
enough, but
boy.
let's just try to go with something else.
I
Like, have
mean,
any skinwalkers, any obscure giant
sure. I mean,
spiders? That's a thing,
nothing,
apparently.
yeah, no giant spiders or anything like that. I mean, I live in a part of Wisconsin that is nearby a lot of like Dogman and
Yeah.
Bigfoot sighting locations.
Yeah.
Um, I've done a good amount of investigation in like the Kettle Moraine State Forest, which is in that southeastern Wisconsin corridor,
Mhm.
where again, like that's where it's sort of a hot spot for all of these different Dogman and Bigfoot sightings. But not just that. You know, people see like anomalous balls of light.
Hmm.
Um, they have
Mhm.
other experiences and things. Well, you know, there was a weird case. This didn't come into me; it came into my friend Nathan Couch, and this person had described seeing this small, almost like satyr-like being cross the road in front of. What's interesting about that is the area this took place. It was nearby Holy Hill.
Hmm.
And so Holy Hill is it's named that because there's actually this beautiful Catholic monastery, and they give tours of it and everything. And it's on top of this hill. And if you ever get a chance and you find yourself by Holy Hill in southeastern Wisconsin for whatever reason, and you get a chance to tour this monastery, you absolutely should because it's just gorgeous architecture. Anyway, um, but this is an area that has a goat man legend attached to it, interestingly enough. And so the reason that it was reported to Nathan specifically is because he has written a book on Goatman sightings,
Hmm.
um, and I don't know if they saw Goatman, but I do think it's very interesting that this person reported this sort of satyr like being, and so it the way that she had described it was it was small, you know, like it was short, and then it looked more or less, I think, human-like from the waist up, but then the waist down, it
Hmm.
had like furry kind of goat legs, like a satyr.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with mythology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's weird, but that's the kind of stuff you get out of this area because Holy Hill is right. It's right in there with the like the Kettle Moraine State Forest. You know, like it's
Mhm.
on the Ice Age Trail, and so you've just got this strange corridor of high strangeness
Yeah. Yeah.
in southern Wisconsin that I can get to in like 45 minutes, and so we've done a good amount of investigating out there. I have seen, and my wife has seen, and our friends have seen, who have when we've all got out together, these weird anomalous lights. We have absolutely seen them. I had a friend of mine, Jay Bachochin, who is he's a Bigfoot researcher. He'd be a great guest for the show if you ever want to have a
Happy
Bigfoot
to have
researcher
him.
on.
Yeah. Feel free to connect.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
And yeah, totally. And so we were out with him, and he actually caught one of these lights on his body cam. So
Mhm.
what had happened was we were towards the end of that night's investigation. We're walking along the trail, and I was out in front with my friend Adam, and Jay and my wife Emily were kind of a little farther back because what we would do is we would stagger ourselves along this trail, and so you'd have a couple people go for a while, and then a couple people stayed back, and then they would wait, and then they would follow, and that way you're sort of spread out a little bit more, and you can just observe more of the surroundings. And they were kind of catching up to us, and all of a sudden I saw appear in the trees, and it looked like it was in the trees, because this is a heavily forested area, obviously. And so it looked like it was in the trees, like it just appeared out of nowhere, and then it drops down to the ground and then vanishes. And I see this thing like full on. My friend Adam, he's not looking at like where he should be. Like he's looking off to the left, so he doesn't see anything, poor guy. But I see this thing, and I like shout a string of obscenities that cannot be repeated on air, but it boils down to like, did you guys see that?
Yes.
And Jay and Emily were both looking straight ahead.
Yeah.
They totally saw it. And Jay had his body cam on. And this was actually the event that inspired me to finally buy my own. And then I just wear it every time I go out. Right. And he had his body cam on, and since he was walking that way, he was facing that way, it totally caught it, And so when you go back and look at this footage, you see this light, and it sure enough, like it's fast, but you can definitely see it, and it just drops down. And those are the kinds of weird lights that people will report out in this area that is renowned for like Bigfoot and Dogman sightings. And so you have to start to wonder, right? Like, what is the connection between, if any, like what are the possible connections, I guess?
Yeah, they believe that there are a lot of connections, right? Between cryptids, UFOs, even paranormal. What is it with the balls of light? And all three instances, there's your connection.
Sure. If you ask somebody like John Keel, he would probably say, well, the balls of light, or he might say that the balls of light are ultra terrestrials in their natural form, and the Bigfoot and the Dogman sightings are ultra terrestrials when they manipulate us to see those things.
Yes.
But I don't know that I necessarily believe that. That just ties into his ultra terrestrial hypothesis.
Yes.
But it could be other things. So if you think about maybe the possibility of Bigfoot or Dogman being like an extra dimensional visitor, it could be that these lights are a sort of like epiphenomenon that occurs alongside, or perhaps as a result of this dimensional travel, or the travel into our reality, right? So I would consider that. It just could be a lot of things. It's just weird that they are so often reported in these relatively tight geographic areas with each other.
Yes, that's what makes it really fascinating.
Oh, sure.
That they're happening together. While you were seeing them, was there anything else happening, like infrasound? Like, have you ever been hit by infrasound? No.
Not to my knowledge. Like my understanding of people who have said that they've experienced infrasound is that it sort of elicits this like immediate fear response, right? And I have never experienced anything like that when we've been out, like not ever. I've seen weird things. I saw what looked like had to be a 7 or 8 foot tall bipedal shadow, because it was dark, move across the trail in front of me, probably 100 feet, maybe. Now maybe 50. I don't remember. I have it written down somewhere, because you have to carefully chronicle these things,
Yes.
But it was relatively far away, but not so far away that I wouldn't be able to see it, obviously. So I have seen weird things out there, that I don't know if it was a Bigfoot, but it was definitely Bigfoot shaped.
Yes.
As it moved,
I mean, you mentioned shadow people. I mean, people have mentioned shadow people around some cryptids, Bigfoot primarily.
Mhm.
So it's just, it's wiggy, when you think
Right.
about all of these. What are we seeing? Are we just seeing things caught between dimensions?
I mean, maybe.
Perhaps not fully,
I think something else. Well, that's a possibility, right? Like,
Yeah.
are some of these shadowy
Mm,
sightings simply of something that isn't, it either hasn't coalesced completely
mm,
into this reality, or are we just seeing a hazy image of something from another reality that we don't have full sight of? Like seeing somebody through a dirty window,
mm.
something like that. uh, who can say? I mean, another possibility I think to consider is that these beings, they may have similarities, like they may have similar qualities, but that doesn't mean that they're the same thing, right? So, for instance, I mean, bears and wolves both live in the forest, and they're both mammals, but they're not the same animal, right?
Right.
And so you could have potentially many different entities or types of entity that share these qualities, right? Maybe this existence in multiple dimensions that we are not privy to. Like maybe there are any number of disincarnate entities that share these qualities, but they're not the same thing. They're just the same in
Mm.
that they share some of these qualities, like we
Yeah.
do with other primates and
Yeah.
similar, right? Or really just any other animal, honestly.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I mean, under those circumstances, like, you could expect to see something like a Bigfoot behaving similar to a shadow person or something. And it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that Bigfoot and shadow people are the same thing specifically. It just means that they exist in some of the same spaces and share similar qualities, just like
Hmm.
we do with the animals with whom we share space.
Yes. That makes perfect sense to me. Uh, Comment and a question. Question. I hate to ask. Please understand. Is there a way to force a UFO sighting? No,
Hmm.
I've never
Interesting
heard of anyone
question.
forcing it. Yeah.
Well,
I
have
don't.
you ever tried like a CE5 experiment? So, CE5 is a method of attempting UFO contact pioneered by Dr. Stephen Greer. And essentially, what it involves is using meditation to sort of focus your consciousness, or I should say, focus isn't the right word. Using meditation to align your consciousness with the UFO phenomenon. And so, what you're trying to do is reach this state of consciousness that is conducive to contacting UFOs.
Mhm.
And you get there by using these specific tones and meditative techniques to just get yourself in the right headspace. And people have had some success with it. I've tried it myself a couple of times, and if nothing else, it's very relaxing, and you get some good sky watching in. But I'll
Mm.
tell you, I did it out in the Kettle Moraine State Forest with Jay and Emily, and I will be darned if we didn't have one of the most interesting UFO sightings of certainly my life, pretty much right afterwards. So
Well, that's cool.
we had gone, yeah, I mean, we had gone through all of the meditation and everything, played all of these tones and whatnot to sort of try to align our consciousness with this experience, this intentional experience. And then afterwards, we're just kind of sitting around. We brought our camping chairs, and so Jay had his IR camera that he had set up on a tripod, and he had it facing this particular section of sky, and so like I'm sitting over there with Emily, and Jay calls me over. He says, Tobias, why don't you come over here? I want you to see something, and I could tell that it must have been something interesting, and so he's like, I want you to look at this piece of sky and tell me what you see. And I look, and I don't see anything. And he's like, okay, well, now look through the camera. And I look through the camera, and there's this light. And so it's the light isn't visible to the naked eye. Mm-hmm. It's only visible through the IR camera. So it seemingly is emitting light only in a spectrum that is not visible to the naked eye. I don't know of any terrestrial aircraft that does that. And so we're watching this light through the IR camera, and we keep looking back and forth to confirm this, because it's just wild that we're seeing this, right? And so we're looking back and forth at this thing, and it flies along real slowly, and then it gets within these trees, or actually it has to be on the other side of these trees, which were some distance away. So it's difficult to judge the distance of objects in flight, especially if you don't know how big they are.
Yes.
But we could tell at the very least, right? Like this thing, it must have been a certain distance away. And so judging on by that, it couldn't have been tiny, right? Like it couldn't have been an insect or something, because it was all the way on the other side of these trees that were probably a half mile, a mile away from us. And right. And so this thing is moving along. It goes behind these trees, and then it moves up real fast, and then down, and then vanishes. And so, okay, here's all of the weird qualities this thing had for everybody listening, right?
Yeah. It's
only visible through the IR camera. It is not emitting light visible to the naked eye. That's weird. It moves in a way that you would not expect any normal terrestrial object or even animal to move in, right? In that it stops suddenly, performs a 90-degree turn straight up, then drops down, and then finally vanishes into thin air, which is also very weird. And so that happened right after we performed this CE5 meditation, right? So yeah, I mean, try it, look it up, if you haven't heard of it, I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I love it. That's why only visible in IR. That's a wow. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my reaction. Yeah. I mean, it was just bizarre.
Big wow. Yeah. Well, it's been awesome having you on. I love the stories, great dialogue. It's one of those things. I love how everything connects, but not just, like I said earlier, not just within the field. You see all of these connections. You see it all the time. Sleep paralysis, you see it in all these different fields. All of the things that you would hear about in malevolent hauntings or attachments. Also, people who have been experiencers, or contactees, abductees seem to go through the same thing, right down to, the smells and the sounds and things of that nature. And the fact that people are experiencing this stuff all over the place, like your shadow experiences were perfect, in conjunction with what this other family was experiencing. It's just almost like a mirror of what you went through.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly right. To say I was blown away hearing Olga's story is a vast understatement. I mean, I heard that, and I literally just sat there in awe afterwards, because it's difficult to describe, frankly, like the feeling when you get that kind of confirmation of an experience
Mm-hmm.
completely out of left field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't looking for it. This is just somebody who had come to me for help, and I was trying to help them. And so it's powerful. It's powerful stuff. And what's interesting, and I think you've touched on this multiple times now, is that this stuff happens to such a broad range of people. You know, it is across the board. It could be literally anybody. Like, there is no specific socioeconomic status, ethnicity, anything that I could point to say this person is more likely to experience the paranormal than anybody else. It could be literally anybody. They could work at your job, go to your church, whatever. It could be anybody you know or pass on the street, anytime, anywhere. Like, they could have had this kind of experience, you know, and that is also very powerful. You know,
it is.
As
It
far as
speaks
I'm
volumes. Yeah,
Right.
people from all walks of life. I always find it interesting is how the people who don't want it, things always happen to them. It's just so easy to shrug it off. You know, I've seen it so many times. I'm like, come on, I did not see this. It could have been this or this. No, it's not. But I don't know. I love it. I love it. How you know, some people are just either so logical or it's just like, no, I'm just not doing it. I had a woman say that to me once. I'm just not doing it. No, not going there. All right.
Sure.
That's just what do you do.
Whatever gets you through the day. I mean, I totally get it. I really do.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for any of this other than that one CE5, I guess, UFO sighting, because doing CE5 is kind of asking for it. But at that point, you know, like, I was so far along in this journey that, I was going out there looking for it because it had been looking for me my whole life. So, of course, you know, you got to do something.
Well, I think they've been around you more than you think. Just, you know, as we go along. Oh, yeah, there was the experience with the gray.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that much to me until I start saying it out loud. And then I'm like, oh, God. Yeah, no,
You
this
really
is
have had a lot. Yeah. I mean, to me, the whole, even, you know, being out of the body, it's you know, I've had people say to me, again, just because I just work in so many areas. I mean, primarily I worked, you know, in the paranormal and realized how much they crisscrossed, you know, with UFO experience or extraterrestrial experiences. And I've had people say to me, no, I was up on the ceiling and something was trying to take me out a window. I'm like they felt themselves going out of the physical.
Right.
And I'm going out of a physical window. It goes, yes. So they're physically moving out. It's not even just like the essence. It's just like they're up and they're hitting the ceiling. Wow. I'm like, okay, so there's levitation happening. Just like, honestly.
Seems to be.
Yeah, the things that I've heard over the years, I just sit back. It's just like, God, it's wondrous. Really. It's really.
It is.
You know. So what do you have coming up? You're writing another book. Do you have some events? What are you doing?
I'm working on another book. So the same publisher, Llewellyn, who published the Mothman book that I wrote with the inimitable Richard Estep, is also I love Richard. He's a great guy, and
yes, he is.
So I signed on with them to write another book. This one solo, and so I'm working on that, and it's about high strangeness. So you can look for, you know, more of this kind of stuff.
Very nice.
In that book. And then I've got a couple of appearances next year, but I've only got one more this year because, honestly, I try to get it all done before the holidays. You know, I like to spend the holidays with my family and I don't want to stress out about traveling and stuff.
Yes.
So I've got a book signing at the Sideshow Gallery down in Chicago coming up this Sunday. So that's Sunday the 9th. You can see me there from 2 to 3 p.m. And then I am done until 2026, other than, you know, investigating and writing and stuff. That's my last appearance of this year is is a
And then
book
you're on
signing coming
hiatus
up.
till 2026, essentially.
That's right. Until spring, basically. Yeah.
No, I love that. I hope you will keep the show in mind when you have the
Of
new book
course.
ready to go. Oh, would love to have you back.
This is wonderful. I love doing this show. So of course.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, love having you. And I just love the contact. I really get into the articles that I've seen. And we'll put the book up again. Here we go. Take your website down so people could see it. There we are. There we are. So again, they can go to your website as well and peruse. And you have the Mothman book also with Richard. So guys, there's all kinds of stuff there. Thank you again, Tobias. My God, it was just such an incredible. Look, I just put the wrong one down. I apologize. That's very incredible. Here's a book.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, it's always incredible having you on, and I thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much. And I hope you have a good Thanksgiving coming up, wonderful
You
Christmas, and
too.
we'll see you in the new year.
Absolutely. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. So, to everybody who's been watching the show tonight, thank you very much. Seeing some new faces in there. Appreciate having you all here. You have been listening to The Outer Realm here on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM, 107.7 FM. Thank you to our sponsors, Folgers Coffee, Justin Snickers, Steve McGinnis. Next week, guys, on Beyond the Outer Realm, Caroline Idarola joins me again, and we're going to be delving into the mysterious, the unconventional, and the hidden. You know that sucker's going to be uncensored. Just saying. So you know the drill. And we welcome back Wednesday Morgan Damon. We're going to be discussing dreams, dream reality encounters, you name it. It's going to be great. And our friend Laura DiDio returns on Thursday to discuss never before shared or disclosed information on Ronald DeFeo. So, you know, that's going to be interesting as always. So, thank you all. And we shall have a good weekend. And we shall see you guys next week. Thank you and good night.